Hello and welcome back to the Football Insider channel. I am Conor Brobbey and today we are talking about possibly the biggest winner of the summer transfer window. We are talking about Sunderland, who had an incredible summer where they completely transformed their squad. And we're going to go through their business and explain why I think they possibly had the best window of any Premier League team, maybe save for Liverpool, but let's get into it anyway. So what was Sunderland's position heading into the summer? I think context is very important. So Sunderland obviously won the playoffs in dramatic fashion, scored a last-minute goal through Tommy Watson, a player who then left the club. They headed into that playoff campaign losing 5 games in a row. Nobody really gave them a chance heading into the playoffs. Everyone was sort of backing Coventry for the win in the semi-final. Then in the final, most people had Sheffield United winning. Sunderland win that game though, but that meant they had the least amount of time to prepare for the new Premier League season. Obviously, the relegation from the Premier League was sorted months in advance, so all the established 17 teams in there knew for a long time they were going to be in there. Leeds and Burnley, of course, were promoted, I think, in early May, so they had about 3 weeks on Sunderland to prepare for the new season. But Sunderland wasted absolutely no time getting themselves ready for the new campaign. Gasolfi came in as their new sporting director. That happened in June. And they were so active in the market almost straight away. And once the fixtures came out and they saw they had West Ham, Burnley and Brentford in their first 3, they knew that they had to strike early and bring in players as quickly as possible. So to start off the summer, they had Jobe leaving for Borussia Dortmund. That was around £30 million, maybe a little bit more depending on what you read. Tom Watson also left for £10 million. He went to Brighton, so that give them plenty of PSR headroom heading into the summer. The previous year, they also sold Jack Clark for £15 million to Ipswich, while spending around £3 to £4 million last summer on new players. They also spent money on Wilson Isidore, who scored 2 goals so far this season. That was around £5 million in January, and they had the expensive loan deal for Enzo in there as well, and Chris Mepham would have been an expensive loan. But it meant that Sunderland entered the summer with masses of PSR headroom. They came into this knowing that they'd barely lost money in the previous seasons because they've been so active in developing players and then selling them for a good price. So let's run through what they've actually done in the market. Apologies, I will be looking down for this, but I've got a long list of players to read. So in net, they added Roefs from NEC in Holland. That was 11.5 million. Nordi Mukiele came in from PSG for 12 million pounds. Omar Alderete came in from Getafe for 10 million pounds. Reinildo came in on a free transfer from Atletico Madrid. Arthur Masuaku came in on a free from Besiktas. And Lutril Geertruida was a deadline day signing a loan deal from RB Leipzig. In midfield, Habib Diarra arrived for 30 million pounds from Strasbourg. Enzo arrived for around 20 million pounds on a permanent deal from Roma after his loan spell. Sadiki came in from Union SG for 19.5 million pounds. Granit Xhaka came in from Bayer Leverkusen for 17.5 million. And then the forward line, Simon Adingra, arrived from Brighton for around 20.5 million pounds. Chemsden Talbi arrived from Bruges for 19.5 million. Bertrand Traore arrived from Ajax for around 2.5 million. They had Mark Gio on loan from Chelsea. That obviously then got rescinded. They used that money to bring in Geertruida, the defender from RB Leipzig. And they also brought in Brian Brobbey from Ajax for around £25 million. So overall, Sunderland's net spend, when you take in what they bought and what they sold, spent around £118 million. Their overall transfer spend is higher than any newly promoted team in Premier League history. And for context, they spent net around £20 million more than Newcastle and Nottingham Forest, 2 teams who've been very active in the market. So we sit here, we see everything that Sunderland have done, but has it actually worked? And why has their window been so impressive, in my opinion? So Sunderland had basically signed a whole new squad of players. As I went through there was a lot of new faces added to that team. And that, of course, can pose risks. There's issues with gelling. You bring the wrong characters into the team. There are all sorts of problems that can happen when you add so many players. But I think we've seen in the first 3 games of the new season, Sunderland have picked up 6 points. They've been strong at home. They've won both their home games. They did lose away at Burnley. But it's clear that that team is gelling, certainly to a degree. They've had a very solid game plan. Their defence has looked very, very good. They kept a clean sheet against West Ham. The Burnley game, they didn't really give up any proper clear-cut chances. And then against Brentford, they conceded 1 clear-cut chance and that went in. So they've been pretty good defensively. That's a good sign. Going forward, I think there is issues there. Hopefully they've addressed that with the sign of Traore and Brobbey. But we'll see as time goes on whether or not those deals will work. But let's go through them individually. Robin Roefs in net. He's just 22 years old. He's just been called up to the Dutch national team. He's been fantastic in Sunderland's first 3 games of the season. You look at some of the issues that teams are having with goalkeepers. I'm looking at West Ham with Hermansen, Kelleher with Brentford. Man United have had issues in net. There's many teams who've had struggles with their goalkeepers this season. And I think at £11.5 million, Sunderland have got a snip here. And a lot of teams in the Premier League are probably regretting not looking at this deal and not potentially signing a player of Roof's ability. He's already shot up in the estimations. He's made that Dutch team, so well done to him. That looks like a good bit of business. In defence, the club didn't spend a fortune on the defence, but that doesn't mean they didn't add quality. Mukiele came in from PSG. You had Alderete, who was in the La Liga team of the season last season. Reinildo was a regular player under Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid. Arta Mathawaku has loads of experience in the Premier League with West Ham, but he was also one of Besiktas's star players last season. And then RB Leipzig, he played pretty much, I think, 40-odd games last season for RB Leipzig. So literal Geertruida, he comes in on loan. Then you've also got with that, Dan Ballard, who's had a really impressive start of the Premier League season. Luke O'Nien, who has been a stalwart for Sunderland since League One. And you've got Trey Hume, who is a national fullback, being linked with Premier League teams, and Dennis Sirkin, who's also been linked with a plethora of Premier League teams. So Sunderland have got really good depth at the back, and they've shown so far this season that their defence looks like it can cope with the rigours of the Premier League, which is obviously a very big positive. In midfield, though, this is where I think Sunderland have really excelled in their business. Habib, Diarra and Noah Sadiki, those two players have got power, physicality. They're very, very good on the ball. They're exactly what you want from Premier League midfielders, both very young as well, and they've slotted in. They've played all 3 games for Sunderland in the Premier League and have looked solid, and Sunderland have largely controlled the midfield battles in their games so far. Granted, Xhaka, though, that's the eye-catching sign. That's the one that everyone in football looked at and thought, wow, I think Sunderland really, really mean business here. Attracting a player who was in Ballon d'Or voting in 2024, I think he finished 16th. A player that, had done masses of success. He's had masses of success at Arsenal. He was part of that invincible Bayer Leverkusen team. An incredible footballer. And I think it's the one that most people thought, wow, Sunderland really, really do mean business. And Xhaka coming in is a massive plus for Sunderland. Enzo Lefebvre, he was there, of course, last season, but he's come in, was very, very solid in his first start at the weekend against Brentford. And they also have the former captain Dan Neil, and they've got Chris Rigg, one of the best young players in the country, sitting, waiting in the wings at Sunderland. So Sunderland's midfield is very, very exciting right now. The forward line, Sunderland have added quality in the final third. Simon Adingra's come in, Talbi's come in, Traore's come in, Brian Brobbey's come in. Talbi, a regular at Bruges last season. He's just 20, he started all 3 Premier League games. So Sunderland looks like a good get. Adingra has lots of Premier League experience from Brighton, got an assist on the opening day, a very good one against West Ham. Traore's got lots of experience. He's obviously been at Ajax, he's been at Aston Villa before then, and was a regular in the Premier League for them. And Brian Brobbey, that's a risky purchase. That's probably the biggest gamble Sunderland have made in the market, £25 million. Wasn't that long ago, though, he was linked with the top teams in Europe. And, he had an incredible season a couple of seasons ago. Last season regressed a little bit, but Sunderland will hope that they'll be able to get more from him. He also had issues off the field, which we won't get into. So my overall verdict on Sunderland's transfer business, I think they've set themselves up to thrive in the Premier League. We look at newly promoted teams in recent years. They've all generally struggled, but they've also followed similar recruitment patterns. The 3 that came up last season, Ipswich recruited a lot from the EFL, which I don't think worked. Leicester and Southampton had issues, and Southampton, of course, had a disaster. They ended up finishing with 12 points last season. But Sunderland, I think their recruitment has been much more clever, more intelligent than those teams before them. They have signed a mix of youthful exuberance